That's it, come on you two, work together now.
So it's been over a month since Manchester Marathon, so it's about time I broke down the race and told you exactly what happened. So I wanted to thank HelloFresh for being the sponsor of today's video. HelloFresh has been so helpful in my training. It offers convenience, tasty meals, and a variety of recipes. Good food is so important for recovery and refueling. The problem Kelly and I have sometimes is we don't know what to make, but HelloFresh solves that problem for us. After a hard day of training, work, and family life, we've got an easy-to-make meal where we know we're going to get healthy food and good portion sizes. So the meals are really easy to prepare. Most of them don't take very long at all. And if you're looking for something really fast, you can use the super quick menu where meals take 15 minutes. What I also love about HelloFresh is I feel like I'm becoming a better chef. It's given me more confidence in the kitchen to make exciting and tasty meals. Yeah, so it's just been really convenient for us. It's taken the guesswork out of the week, given us a bit more structure, and we're no longer worrying about food planning. Instead, we can put our time and effort into the training. It's not expensive and it costs from £3.15 per portion before any discount, and even cheaper with the code HelloRunner, which will get you 60% off your first box and free desserts for life. So Manchester Marathon was just over 4 weeks ago, and it wasn't the day I planned for. It was, I'm not going to say a disaster, but it wasn't a success either. So let's break down what happened and why. Well, the first thing that happened was that I didn't train very well. I started the year in such a good way, and in February I found myself in good shape. I PB'd Wokingham half marathon, running 68 low, and that was at the end of like a 90 something mile week. I was really happy with that and actually felt ahead of schedule. I felt like things were really building nicely. But then life happened, and it's not an excuse, it's just what happened, and it wasn't the block I wanted. We moved house, we were at weddings abroad, there was just a lot of personal stuff going on, and my training suffered, and that's okay. Not every block is going to be perfect, and this one wasn't. And I knew that, and I adjusted my goals going into Manchester. On the day, I decided, because I actually think it's always the best idea to run to your fitness, so I wasn't going to get drawn into anyone else's race and was just going to pace myself and to see what felt right. So in the first few miles, it felt good. Looking at the watch was very confusing initially because it was saying like 5:13, 5:14, 5:10 a mile when I knew I was about 5:30 to 5:40. I could feel how fast I was going. I then remembered that I was using my stride pod and had turned off GPS because I'd used it on the treadmill. So it was working off the stride calibration, which isn't accurate for me outdoors. So all in all, I knew that it was giving me false data. I didn't panic because I knew I was clipping along at what felt the right effort anyway. Just took my stride pod off and threw it to Kelly at the side of the road, as this was the only thing I could think to do to disconnect it from the watch to get more reliable data. The plan was to manually lap the course watch every 5k, and that's what I did. So when I hit 5k, 10k, I knew exactly how fast I'd done the previous 5k, which gave me a really accurate display of how fast I was going. It was obvious from the first 5k and the 10k split that it wasn't going to be a PB day. I was running a lot of the race solo, basically all of it. So it was fun though. I was still enjoying it. I just realized that I didn't feel amazing. I wasn't surprising myself. Sometimes you taper, you get to marathon race day, the legs come alive and you just start clipping along and you can't believe you're running that fast. That wasn't the case in Manchester. It felt like training. It felt like the effort I'd done in marathon pace in training. So it was averaging low 5:30s, which would give me a good time, but it was never going to be a special day. So I decided I was just going to have fun, work as hard as I could, and see what I could achieve. So after many miles alone, I was just trying to take care of the process. I was very process orientated in Manchester. I'd hit the drink station, I'd grab my soft flask, which was seamless. Oh, it was such a good strategy to have the soft flask in a little paper cup. I would definitely do that again if I get elite tables at a future race. So I'd grab the soft flask, and each one had about 30 grams of carbs in, and I would wolf that down and crack on. The problem happened when, quite early actually, I started to get stomach issues and started to feel sick, but I didn't back off the carbs. So despite me taking on a lot of carbs, it worked out at about 100 grams an hour, and it causing me to feel sick, In training, what I normally would do at that stage is back off, but I was so process orientated that I was making sure I took the carbs on even though I felt sick, and that came back to haunt me later in the race. So in the second half of the race, I think, what did I go through half in? About 1:13 something maybe, yeah, 1:13 something. I'd have to check. I'll put up on the screen. But in the second half of the race, I really did start to feel really sick and would start retching. If you watch the race vlog, you'll see the footage of me running along, Kelly filming and me retching. That was a large portion of the second half of the race that occurred for. My whole abdomen region was just cramping and like hurting, and I was trying to push through it. I was trying to ignore that feeling and knew the legs were still okay, so was trying to push through it, but it was really difficult. In the end, I did stop and I tried to throw up, but I just couldn't throw up, which is really frustrating because I knew if I could be sick that it would be this huge amount of relief and then I could just push to the end. But I found a way to the end. I pushed, I finished, I ran 2:33, I think it was. I've even forgotten the time. I overtook someone in the sprint finish, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Manchester is a great race. It's pretty flat. The support is incredible, and I love London Marathon, and I will obviously go back to London again, but it was nice to do one that was a bit different and not as intense as London can be. So what are the lessons? Well, the lessons are, don't fuel as hard and listen to your body like I would do in training. If you feel sick, don't take the next gel, just leave it for a bit. I don't know if part of me knew that I wasn't going to PB, so I really wanted to take on the fuel to see if that made a difference. I don't know. Maybe that's just trying to make excuses in hindsight. But yeah, I just need to listen to my body if I feel sick in future and not force the fuel on. I recovered pretty well from the marathon. I felt good, get back into training, and then decided to do another marathon. And I'll give you the reasons why. The main reason is I was so frustrated with how I'd fueled at Manchester. I wanted to try something different. So I was marathon fit. Obviously I wasn't going to run particularly well at Newport Marathon, but it gave me an opportunity to try something different, try the fueling again with a race that doesn't really matter, so that in future races like Chicago Marathon in the autumn, I feel a bit more confident with my fueling strategy. I didn't want my last marathon to be Manchester, knowing how badly it had gone with the fueling, and then go into Chicago with a little bit of an unknown. So I went into Newport, still carrying fatigue, obviously, but with the opportunity that it's just down the road, I can drive there in the morning, and also I thought it was just going to be fun. I loved racing Manchester, but felt the sickness thing stopped me from pushing, whereas if I could get that right, I could push in Newport and have another blast running a marathon. And we only live once, so sometimes you've got to remember that I won't be racing marathons forever. I certainly won't be racing, looking to try and place in the top 10 for that long. So yeah, you only live once. So I went to Newport and raced another marathon. And it went really well. It went really well. I absolutely loved it. So what I did differently is, rather than a 2-day carb load, I went to a 1-day carb load. I read a paper, quite an old paper, but all about carb loading and why it's not necessary to do 2 days or 3 days, and that if you take enough carbs on and don't do much activity on the day before, you can pretty much do a carb load in 1 day. And I found the paper interesting because it kind of made sense to me. If I've got a certain glycogen storage capacity, why am I taking on that capacity 2 days in a row rather than just taking it 1 day? So I decided to try that and felt so much better for it on the morning. Didn't feel as bloated, didn't feel as sluggish. So that was a good thing. I will link to the paper in the description of this video. Actually, I don't know if you'll be able to get it, because it's behind a paywall, but I'll link to it anyway, and if any of you have access to through any institutions, you can read the paper. The plan for the race again was just to run to feel, not get carried into any groups, just run my own race. The Newport Marathon starts with a half marathon starting at the same time, so I was in a nice little group for the first few miles with some half marathon runners, and when they peeled off about mile 3 or 4, I think it was, then I was left alone, and I think at this point I was in 4th place maybe, 4th place, but I was on my own, and there was a couple of runners just behind, so I slowed up a bit and waited for them. because I knew I'd have a much better race if I was running in a group. So we were a group of 3, which became a group of 4, and that group of 4 was incredible. We ran so many miles together, talking, chatting, laughing, taking it in turns on the front, and just working together. And I absolutely loved it. Eventually, 2 boys broke away. I felt like it was too early, so me and another lad decided to hold back. I thought I would maybe catch those boys that broke away later in the race, and then towards the end my legs just felt so heavy and tired. I actually felt really good fuel-wise. I fueled a lot less than in Manchester. I fueled more to fuel. I was fueling regularly, but I was taking on probably about 60 grams an hour rather than 100 grams an hour of carbs, and that seemed to work so much better. I had no issues with my stomach. I was taking on the same OTE fuel. Nothing changed with regards to that. I just didn't take on as much. But yeah, so I don't feel like I bonked or hit the wall. My legs did get tired as expected, because even in the early miles I could feel the fatigue in them. But yeah, I chased down the person in 5th, so moved into 5th place, and yeah, came 5th in a big marathon. So I loved it. It was just so good. It was such a good day. Turns out now that the course is measured long. So I finished in 2:31 something. It's now 2 hours and 30 something low. Means nothing to me. It means something to other people. There's plenty of people I know. I know someone personally that just missed out on breaking 3, and now the adapted times mean they have broken 3, which is amazing. But to me, it was just about racing, having fun. It was nice to finish a bit quicker than Manchester, but you know, it's nowhere near the sort of times I want to be running. But I did enjoy the race. I found the fueling so much better, and I'm much more confident now going into Chicago in the autumn, knowing that I've got the fueling sorted, hopefully, and a different carb loading strategy as well. So I was really happy with the lessons I learned in Newport, and we'll take those forward. But what's next? Well, unfortunately, I've picked up a niggle, maybe an injury, I haven't decided. I'm waiting for my massage/physio guy to get back from his holiday so we can have a look at it. But I'm not too worried. I'm enjoying doing some cross training on the bike. I've missed the bike. It was meant to be a big part of my marathon training block towards Manchester, but it fell away and I stopped doing it. So it's good to get back into that. I would love to do a triathlon at some stage. So I watched Kelly on the weekend do her first triathlon, and it looked so much fun. I was really inspired, a little bit jealous. So I would like to try one of those, but I do need to sort out my swimming if I'm going to do one of those. But that's not the goal. That would just be for fun. The goal is Chicago Marathon in the autumn. So I want to set myself up with a really nice base so that I go into the marathon specific work towards Chicago in great shape. So I'm going to be doing lots of cycling, and hopefully once this niggle in the glute is sorted, I will then start building a base and doing all the fundamental things that I think will help my performance in Chicago. As always, I have neglected strength, so that is something I need to get into my plan. So I'm at the moment in the planning phase of looking at all the different aspects of my training that I can optimize. Strength is one of them, adding in the cycling is another, which will help with any triathlon that I might or may not do. But it would be good to do a triathlon this summer if I can sort my swimming. And then, yeah, really focus on getting the strength and getting the training block that I really want towards Chicago. I really do think I can run a really good race in Chicago if I get it right. But yeah, the sun's come out. I can't see anything now. So I hope you enjoyed this quick check-in with the Manchester race, what I've done since, and the current situation. Lots more videos to come soon. If I am injured and it's not a niggle, then I don't know, I'll think up something. But for now, I'll see you next time.